people will start writing in the questions and answers. Are we going to try to answer those or just wait till the end? So people
Yeah,
should,
so we're going to have a Q&A period after the speakers, and so Reese will be monitoring that, and we'll highlight some questions for our panelists to answer.
okay. So you might, when you get your introduction, remind folks that.
Right. And we're ready to go. So thank you everyone for being here.
Good.
All right. And then Reese has the
Okay.
next slide.
Uh,
So welcome everyone to our Prop 5 webinar. We're joined by our speakers here today, and I'll kick it off to our board president for the Sacramento Housing Alliance, Kathy Cresswell.
Hello. I am so happy to be able to be here today with you all and to welcome you to this really important webinar that SHA is really proud to be putting on. SHA's one of our utmost significant priorities has always been to ensure that there is sufficient funding to build the affordable homes that we need in our region. And it's never been easy, but it has been something that we have been dedicated to and had worked, in fact, in part with the Sacramento City Council to get an affordable housing bond going. And then the pandemic hit and that didn't quite work. But Prop 5 will give our communities, it will empower them to be able to support funding the critical affordable housing that they need in their communities. Our communities in this region have a critical shortage of affordable housing. People in the community support affordable housing, but there's just no way we don't have the tools now to get that. And thanks to our assembly member here, we now have a opportunity to give our communities the power to vote for the critical affordable housing that we need, as well as the infrastructure that frequently is needed to support the affordable housing, as well as support transportation needs and other infrastructure needs. So we're excited to be bringing all these wonderful people together today for you. And so we've got a lot to cover, so I'm not going to talk anymore. But we're glad to put this on for you. And I am now going to turn it over to our esteemed executive director and our MC for the event. So thank you all for being here. Vote for Prop 5. And here's Jonathan.
Thank you, Kathy, for those kind words and for kicking us off this afternoon. And welcome, everyone. My name is Jonathan Cook. I'm the Executive Director of the Sacramento Housing Alliance, and we're really happy to be able to provide this webinar this afternoon before ballots drop next week. We cover the 6-county SACOG region, and so we're really honored to be able to have one of our local elected officials, Majority Leader Aguiar-Curry, joining us this afternoon, who represents and lives in Yolo County. And so we're really thrilled to be able to have her speak with us this afternoon about the importance of Prop 5. And before I introduce her, I also wanted to acknowledge our other panelists as well. So we also will be hearing from Noor Kausar from EAH Housing. She is a business development manager. And as well as serving in that capacity, she's also one of our board directors for the Housing Alliance. And I'm also honored to have our friend and colleague Matt Huerta on this call as well. He's a affordable housing consultant for the Yes on 5 campaign and has really been organizing these statewide efforts and actually brought us into this campaign as well. So thank you, Matt, for joining us this afternoon. And to start us off, we'll have the majority leader. She represents the 4th Assembly District, which covers Napa, Lake, Yolo, Colusa, and part of Sonoma counties. And she was the author of ACA 1 as well as ACA 10, which has led us to have Prop 5 on the ballot this November. So thank you so much, Majority Leader Aguiar-Curry, for joining us. And please tell us a little bit more about why you authored this legislation, why this is important for our local communities, and why folks should vote yes on Prop 5.
Great. Well, I first of all want to thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure, and it's very exciting for me to be able to talk and strum up some excitement about the reasons we need Prop 5. You know, as you said, I have a rural district with a lot of small cities and agricultural communities, but we definitely have many of the same social justice issues that impact all our urban communities. So we struggle with homelessness, affordable housing, the lack of infrastructure, certainly not enough workforce housing to support working communities. But whether it's streamlining or making CEQA work more efficiently or enforcing local and state housing laws, my colleagues and I are working hard to find different ways to deal with our housing crisis. And I really want to thank all of you for really stepping up, because there's housing crises not only in California and the United States, but I just returned from Europe and they're facing the exact same things that we're facing here, lack of affordable housing. The work that you've all done on the ground every single day, and to be a voice for our people and our families and our small businesses, are instrumental on how we can be successful. Your efforts truly guide what we do here in Sacramento. So today, let's talk a little bit about Proposition 5, which I've been working on for, 7.5 years, and why your support in November is so important. Before I came to the Assembly, I worked in local government. I was a planning commissioner. I was a city council member, a mayor, and I was part of the regional agencies. You mentioned one of them, SACOG. I did water, I did housing and transportation. So I know firsthand how hard it is to get local projects done. It takes a partnership between so many members of a community and their local leaders to fix and identify a problem and develop a plan to fix it. A plan for the community that's focused on a issue, and to make sure it's transparent, and to make sure that we bring local jobs, local investment, local control, and local accountability. So Prop 5 is about local jobs. It's about local investment. And we need to help our elected officials attain those goals. We're all struggling. Local communities are struggling. On top of dealing with the housing crisis, they can't afford basic flood or public infrastructure, such as building even a new fire station. But I want to remind everybody, every community is different. What is needed in Los Angeles or in Coachella Valley or in Yolo County or wherever, Sacramento County, everybody is different. And the locals know what the projects are that they need to make sure that they can get good projects done. So that's why we need to return the power back to our locals, governments, so they can plan projects that reflect what our constituents want. So what it does, it really simply gives you, the voters here, an opportunity to weigh in on local priorities that are meaningful to your community. So let's put it out there, whether it's senior or veteran housing, a library, a fire station, or hospital, Prop 5 is a funding tool that can revive communities, and it's optional. So I want to stress it's optional. If your city doesn't want to do a project, they don't have to do anything. All this does is bring the voter threshold down from 67% down to 55%. And because it's optional, only if you want to do any of these projects. You could use this tool, or you could use the old tool that's still available to you to run a bond at 67% with no accountability. So the most important part about this is obviously getting the voter threshold down, but it's because it's crafted to keep local government, and we've heard this from my colleagues, accountable, transparent, and fiscally responsible to their constituents. And Prop 5 requires a 55% supermajority for passage, just like a school bond does. So just to name a few that I think you'd be interested in, some of the local projects someone can do would be rental housing, ownership housing, interim housing, down payment assistant and first-time homebuyer programs, owner-occupied affordable housing rehabilitation programs that are affordable to households earning up to 150% of county-wide median income, housing developments to shelter victims of domestic violence or veterans, migrants, or persons with disabilities. Properties must be deed restricted for 45 years when purchased, 55 years for rentals or longer extended by the ordinance, and targeted housing that is linked to services that assist residents retaining the housing, improving their health status, and maximizing their ability to live and, when possible, work in their community. I was really thoughtful when I did this proposition, because I want to make sure, if you look at how we do bonds right now at 67%, there is no accountability. They can have administrative costs go sky high and not get projects done. We say specifically the maximum that they can use for administrative costs is 5%. So we put a lot of things in there for us to make sure that we're transparent. We have a lot of backing for this bill. We have the firefighters, Habitat for Humanity, League of Women Voters. You can see it on the website. California Federation of Teachers, Middle Class Taxpayers, California for Retired Americans, Nurses Association, League of California Cities. We all care about our communities, and I want to make them better. That is why I cannot stress enough that we need your support in November. Prop 5 will help our local communities thrive, and I think we really carved out a really good piece with the housing people. I got the Board of Realtors to go neutral on the bill, and that's a big, and you all know that's a big one. And I think we all see the importance of housing infrastructure to make our communities thrive. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that overview. And I think that's a really important point, that it's bringing it in parity with the threshold for passing school bonds. I think that's something that a lot of folks weren't aware of. And really a testament to the great work that you've done leading this effort, and with a coalition of folks in the legislature to be able to get that broad coalition of support. So really excited about that, and thank you for joining us. And then our next speaker is Noor Kausar from EAH Housing, and we'll be speaking about why this local funding would be important for developers to be able to build more affordable housing. Thank you, Noor.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to our majority leader, and thank you all for joining. I hope you take what you hear today to your friends and your families and neighbors, in addition to voting, because we really need to get the word out. So if you're joining us here from the greater Sacramento region, like I am, I know we all see and feel the impacts of the cost and lack of affordable housing here in our community. Families in my kids' school that I know are struggling with rent and worried about losing their homes, and public servants who live in my neighborhood and serve the state of California right here in Sacramento are being priced out and not able to live, near downtown or near their offices. So as a nonprofit affordable housing developer, EAH Housing builds rental homes affordable to California residents statewide. For folks here in Sacramento, that those developments that I'm building right now are serving families who, let's say a family of four is earning less than $80,000 a year. So, and we're also building supportive housing, right? Permanent supportive homes for people who are facing or are experiencing homelessness. So right now I have 140 apartments under construction in Sacramento and more on the way. And I can tell you that Prop 5 will work. With Prop 5, organizations like mine can build new housing, we can renovate existing housing, and we can provide more affordable options that support families, seniors, veterans, and more. So using bonds passed in other communities around the state by voters, I can tell you that EAH has done this before with this kind of funding. We've been able to accomplish a lot in other parts of California, and we want to do the same here in Sacramento. So some of the things we've been able to do with bonds that have passed, we've built supportive housing for people with disabilities and people experiencing homelessness. We've provided deeply affordable rental homes for families. And like I said, here in Sacramento, a family of four under $80,000 a year, that's who we're targeting. And we've been able to repair and renovate existing affordable rental housing so that it stays affordable in perpetuity. So EAH wants to do more of this in Sacramento. I want to do more of this in my own community, and I urge you to take our message for Prop 5 today, vote, and help us get this critical tool passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noor. Really appreciate that perspective and hearing about the great work that you're doing with EAH and our other developer partners across the region and state. And next, hearing from Matt Huerta. Thank you so much for joining us and for bringing us into this coalition work for the Yes on 5 campaign. And if you'd like to provide some updates about where we're at with the statewide campaign, some challenges that we might be facing, why it's important for folks to get out the vote with ballots dropping next week, and a little bit of a call to action. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody. Happy Thursday, and it's go time, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. This is the last final stretch, and so as mentioned, ballots are going to be dropping, and folks are going to be, sending in their ballots very shortly here. And so it's not a time to really argue with our friends. It's time to really rally our friends. It's a time to make sure we connect with family, friends, others, the coalition that we know supports this or should be supporting it. And that's really what we're trying to do, because we are expecting increased turnout, right? Thank goodness the top of the ticket, we all recognize that how important that was for a lot of things we want to get done this election season. In terms of Yes on 5 campaign, it's been very exciting to roll out so many tools and to connect with so many coalition partners that are invested and want to see this pass in November. And so what we've been doing as a campaign is really making sure that we're addressing the needs of folks on the ground, that we have a toolkit online and it's very readily available, it's accessible. We have a number of different tools, including not only the coalition calls that we've been holding with hundreds of coalition partners, but we have held several speakers trainings, several social media trainings that have been very well attended. And we're starting to see a lot more of that out there. We can definitely see more, and we appreciate everybody's more support on that. So we'll have a call to action with some list of things to do in a minute. Other things that we've been doing is making sure to try to negotiate with our op-ed boards. We've had a kind of hit and miss there, but we did get the LA Times as an example, several others to join us. And just recently heard yesterday and this morning, in fact, that La Opinion in LA also signed on. So we're getting some ethnic media outlets. We encourage folks that have those unique relationships and connections to ethnic media to making sure that all of our voters across our diverse California that step forward and understand how important it is that we vote yes on Prop 5. Again, we have walk cards that are available both in the major regions of California for folks that are out there that are connected to other progressive candidates or other initiatives that are happening. There's lots of school bonds that are happening, other things where labor and other coalition partners are already doing walks, are already engaging voters. And if they can join and connect to our lit pieces and deliver those directly to voters as well, we encourage that to the extent possible. And we're at a point where we know that there is opposition. There has been significant opposition, as the majority leader mentioned. With her leadership in the legislature, we were able to significantly neutralize some of the strongest voices out there. But we know that there are folks, including the State Chamber of Commerce and the Howard Jarvis Association, that they are poised and ready to provide some opposition at various turns, and there have been significant efforts to wage that at the editorial board level as well. So we know that that's lurking. We can definitely penetrate through that noise with our messaging, which is true and righteous, and just as Noor lifted up how critical it is for our affordable housing development pipeline to actually get built. We need these resources on the ground for fire response. So as you're out there lifting up what you understand, what you believe will be compelling things for the voters, for the people that care about the community, whether it's affordable housing in terms of first-time home buyers, addressing homelessness. It could be critical infrastructure such as emergency response or building bridges or improving transportation systems. So just making sure to lift those up is certainly important at this late juncture. So we can share more in terms of the tools that I mentioned in the chat. There's going to be continuous opportunities. The next big opportunity to engage in the coalition call is October 16th. And so we encourage folks to put that on your calendar. It's at 10 a.m. on the 16th, Wednesday, the 16th. And between now and then, again, engaging with plugging into any field campaign work. Oh, I'll mention as well, we're very happy to team with Million Voters Project, who's actually has engaged all of their, over 40 different organizational partners across the state to address non-traditional voters and to try to activate voters in spaces across the state that typically don't hear from us, and we absolutely need to make sure they understand how critical it is. So if there's organizations, I know there are organizations in the Sacramento Valley as an example that are part of that, and I know the Sacramento Housing Alliance has strong relationships there. We look forward to continuing to see you leverage all those relationships. I'll pause for now, and I'll be here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I wanted to open it up to our panelists if there were any other points you wanted to add or any other examples of why this funding is important for local jurisdictions.
I would like to, if you don't mind.
Please.
Things I want people to remember is the legislature is really trying to do more and more bills and always include accountability and transparency, because there's been way too many times we don't have really good accountability. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read off some of these. I want to give people feel trusting that this is what we're doing and that we were going to follow through. But a city would have to have, first of all, an expenditure plan. It's required so voters know specifically in writing what projects will be funded for their bond in their local community. And there'll be a cap on administrative costs, which is important, so we know that the money is going actually to the project. There'll be strict conflict of interest rules that will apply to local elected officials, because we've heard in the past there's conflict of interest and people are, trading different things for things. There's strict rules on that. There will be independent performance and financial audits of every single project. Audits will be published in an easy to understand language so every taxpayer can see how their money is being spent. The audits will also be reviewed by the state auditor. There will be an independent citizens oversight committee for every project, and those citizens are required to go through training and have real watchdogs looking over every single project. And projects will have to be listed publicly, and Prop 5 includes legal guarantees that the monies must be spent to benefit the jurisdiction that approved those bonds. So only local taxpayers benefit. What's that saying is that we have put so many guardrails around this that you can't find that if you did with school bonds. You don't find that with general bonds in your city. Right now, general bonds are running right now, and there's no accountability. The same with if you wanted to do a bond as it stands right now at 67%, there are no guardrails. So this is a really good tool, and it's going to make sure we're all accountable and it's transparent. I think a lot of people, of course, housing's the number one that people always ask about, but water projects, we're seeing sea level rise. People and communities are going to have infrastructure start failing them if we don't take care of some of these things early on. Sanitary sewer, waste treatment plants, public buildings, including fire and police stations, parks and open space. Everybody wants a park. Flood control, libraries, broadband expansion in underserved areas, hospital construction. There is a plethora of things that we can get to make sure our communities are thriving. And I have done some of these projects in my little community, and to see how it has turned around and it has a momentum that when people see that their money's being spent in their community, that they can run into that elected official at the grocery store and give them the 1-2 punch periodically. You can't do that on these statewide projects. God bless us as a state. We do wonderful, big projects, but many of us are left behind. So if there's one message I want to share with all of you, is think about what you want in your community and it's not getting done. This gives you the tool to do it. It gives our local officials that tool to do it. And I would love to see new housing. And when I'm hearing Noor talk about what they're doing, it just opens up my heart, because I know of projects in my community right now that should be redone. and they're very easily done. They are hooked up to water and sewer, but they're falling apart. And it wouldn't be that hard for a community to step up and take over some of those projects. So, you know, I'm on my soapbox. This is really important. So there you go.
Well, thank you. I did have a question for you, Majority Leader. Am I correct? I think that the inspiration you had mentioned previously for this legislation was about one of the jurisdictions in your district in Colusa County that wanted to build a firehouse or something like that, and they were coming up against that 67% threshold, which is very difficult for any jurisdiction to get approved.
You're absolutely right. They have a very antiquated building, and they have asbestos problems. They cannot, it's very difficult for them if they were going to have a woman actually be a firewoman there. There's not a restroom. There's one restroom for them. They have this beautiful equipment trying to sit in these old buildings, and they just come up against it every single time. And in that particular community, they're prone to fires. And so they don't, even if they were to have the CDF or other fire departments come in, they don't have a place for them. So there's so many things with, you know, the fire department is a crucial thing. Everybody wants to, you know, have their lower rates on insurance. What's the first thing many times insurance companies ask? What's your fire department like? Who's running your fire department, to make sure that they get coverage? My example is for my little town of Winters, we were in a basic garage. We got funding, we put in a new fire department. It lowered the insurance rates for some of our community, but better yet, it got economic development going because big companies and hotels started coming to the community because we had a fire department. They knew that there was somebody there. So it's just like a snowball effect, right? It can do so many good things if we have infrastructure in there. You get the housing in there. You know, people start looking at and wanting to invest in your community. So infrastructure is so vital. My job as a legislator is safety. When these young kids go, what's your real job? It's safety, right? Fire, police, making sure people have a roof over their head. The schools are safe. We have streets, we have lighting, you know, the sidewalks are, that's my job. And if whatever I can do to help the locals attain that, this is what I'm going to do.
Thank you so much. Any of our other panelists have other thoughts they'd like to add, Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to note another reason why this is so important is because the state has really had to reduce its budgets. And so the amount of money that the state was providing previously for housing has been slashed. So we have, at a time when our needs are increasing beyond belief, we have less resources from the state. This Prop 5 will give us the tools at the local level to create the funding that we need. Without it, you know, all the progress we were making, Newer talked about the development. Sacramento has seen lots of really good projects, but they are dependent on local state funding to help make them work. That money is going away. Prop 5 will give us the tools to empower us to get that funding. And at the same time, to the degree that there's any state funding left, it helps people in our region and across the state compete for that funding. So we need local funds both to get the limited resources that there are, but without that, we're going to see the progress we were making in building housing for our on-home neighbors, for building housing for our disabled neighbors, just for working families. We're not going to be able to continue that progress. So this is the tool we need now. And I also wanted to support what the Congressman or
Call me Cecilia. That's fine.
mentioned about the infrastructure. And there's a lot of infrastructure that will help also with mobility, that will really help strengthen our communities, complete streets, all of those things. It is about making healthy, safety communities and giving us the power to do what we know is best needed in our community. So those are why we really have to make sure you vote, tell your neighbors, tell your friends. This is critical to get things done in our community.
You know, I want to just make a comment. Kathy made a really good point. Many times when you go after grants for a city, you have to have a matching dollar amount. The feds had a ton of money this past couple of years, when, and a lot of cities couldn't go after it because they didn't have the matching funds. This could be part of a matching funds on a big project. So, I think that we have to leverage some of the money that comes in, and at least we can say to the federal government or the state government, look, we have contributed this much as a city or a local,
Right.
and we would like to have some more, they want to know that you are actually trying. They don't want to give money when you haven't done something on your own. So I think you're on the right track, Kathy. Absolutely. This is how we can get some more additional projects done and have the federal government help us out and the state government, but we all are in this together. It's a partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Nora, did you have anything you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we addressed some of the questions in the chat. And I also, real quick, as the majority leader and Kathy were speaking, I just feel like I hear so many examples when I'm talking to folks in communities that I want to build in, right? And, one of the biggest issues is the lack of both the infrastructure and the housing. And sometimes you can't do the housing without the infrastructure. I was just talking to someone in Yolo County, in the majority leader's area, up in Madison, which is, just a really small town, and they really want to get some permanent housing for farm workers up there. There's a lot of migrant housing, but not permanent housing. And the kids really want to stay in their schools. They want to stay there, full time, long term. But their biggest issue is they don't have a water and wastewater system that they can tie into for the new developments. And so, trying to figure out how do we pay for an entire system to be put in so that we can create these homes. These are the kinds of things that communities can do. We can vote for, and we can get that kind of, the infrastructure built and the housing built. So I just wanted to make that point. And then it looks like, we've got a few questions here. If anybody wants to take these, Evan, thank you. Evan is leading the Sacramento County Young Democrats, and they've endorsed Prop 5. What can Evan do to help get more involved and help locally in our communities leading up to the election? Anybody want to answer that?
Matt, you should answer that one because we got all the good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for your question, Evan. So certainly the Democratic Party was one of the first ones to step up and say this is part of the party platform, and that really flowed into a lot of other coalition partners' activities. So certainly activate your chapter, their members, the other networks that stem from that. And we actually have, we can send or you can help pick up walk cards. So connect with me directly, and we'll make sure that you have materials, and then also to help make sure that the right information is getting out there. And if folks are wanting more support than that, then we can set up even direct trainings if needed.
What we're finding too is that women really, once they understand what this proposition is, they're all on board. But we have to make sure more women know. There's a lot of women out there. Our Latina women are generally the voters in Latina households. And, they're watching every nickel and penny that they have. But the information that's going out that this is a tax, this is not a tax. It's the opportunity for a city to run a bond if they want to in the future for their community. But we need to make sure people know it does not raise taxes. This bond only gives us the voter threshold from 67% to 55%, gives us another tool in the toolbox with guardrails.
Absolutely. We had one more question. So this person asked, why was reducing special taxes from a 2/3 vote to 55% vote removed from the proposition? I know that reducing the passage of a bond to 55% is included, but that is very regressive because wealthy investors will almost double their investment in a bond. Anyone want to take that one on?
Well, special taxes were left out because we did initial polling. I would have preferred to keep them in because you only get one chance at this very often. But I wanted to be realistic. It was better for us to take a small bite and get this across the line, and we can attack the other later on. But that's the main reason why special taxes were taken off. We were with another coalition that really wanted us to take that off. We hemmed and hawed about it. I personally, I didn't want to, but I also want to win. right? And I want to make sure that my communities are taken care of. So you don't always get the full loaf of bread in this business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we had Enoch who asked, how will local jurisdictions pay for these bonds, and asking if that was coming from property taxes.
That's generally where they all come from, is property taxes that run through the property taxes. So again, when people know that it's their community and what it's getting for them, and they can see the fruits of that investment, they'll go for it. And I've seen it in my own community. We did that with getting broadband to the community. We got economic development building. We got the community even voting forever, because I'm in a conservative community. They didn't vote for school bond forever. And they voted for school bonds 3 times in a row. And our little community has the first time a new school. They didn't have that. I went to school in Army, what they call the old Army barracks, were brought in when we had a fire back in the 50s. Now that tells you how old I am, right? But anyway, they had the old barracks with like one outlet. Well, you can't have one outlet anymore, right? So, you know, it gets people voting and trusting their community. And, you know, and it's, there's a lot of things at the state we do really well, like I said, and we have failed our locals way too many times. So this is an opportunity for all of us to help out your community.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that as well. And then, Reese, did we have any questions in Spanish? I was just wanting to double check in case we needed to answer that as well. But while we're waiting for that, I'll share also, we were up recently with a bunch of regional planners up in a jurisdiction in Placer County. And, you know, our local jurisdictions have limits on their local affordable housing trust funds. And just a few projects, 2 or 3 projects, have essentially wiped out their local trust fund. And so even if they're wanting to be able to pay for additional projects, that really highlights why we need to be able to approve these additional funds to be able to pass bonds to pay for some of this. And so that just really stuck with me from when we were up in Roseville, which is, you know, not too far from Sacramento, why this is important. And we do have a question in Spanish. Matt, are you comfortable taking that?
Yeah, I saw that it's mostly a comment. So, pues,
Okay.
muchas gracias. I think it was, ¿cómo se llama?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, para tus comentarios. Por supuesto, es necesario que ustedes, tu familia, la comunidad, estén con nosotros pues en comunidad, en coalición, para que podamos ganar esta campaña. Gracias.
That's great. You know, that brings up a interesting question. I was just at my local Carnitas festival, community festival. And I started a Hispanic advisory committee to get people involved in the community. And they've done incredible things in the past, you know, 10 years. I mean, from scholarships to making sure people get on the school boards. I mean, you know, the momentum's going. And the first thing I got, again, every time I go is like, what happened to the housing? What happened to the self-help housing that we were successful on 25, 30 years ago, and we were promised more of those housing? Well, we've had people come in and then they start saying, oh yeah, we're going to do it. And then they think, oh, it doesn't pencil out. BS. It can pencil out if you want it to make it pencil out. So the locals really want these projects. And yes, in my backyard, they do want these projects in their backyard, because when you have, particularly in my community, we've had some of the self-help ones and they're beautiful. And people are so proud of they have a home and a roof over their head, and they're teaching their kids what the responsibility is. So, you know, housing is such a big piece of the puzzle. It's not the only piece, but it's a big piece. And so, you know, every time we go, you mean we still don't have that, you know, oh, that developer came and went already. So, you know, I think with having this particular insight and guardrails on, we'll be able to keep their feet to the fire on these projects.
I do think it also matters that, you know, a lot of local governments, like the city of Sacramento, are doing a lot of things to make development easier, to make affordable housing easier to build. You know, they're doing fee waivers, they've reduced a lot of regulations and things. So you can do all of that, and we applaud the local governments who are doing that. But at the end of the day, you still need the dollars to make those developments actually happen, to build those communities that enrich our neighborhoods. So especially for those communities who are working so hard to try to facilitate more affordable housing, we have to be able to empower those communities then to get the resources that they need.
Right.
That if the local voters want more affordable housing, they should have the opportunity to vote for more affordable housing. The system now is really unfair. A small minority can make a decision for the whole community. That's just fundamentally unfair. This system gives us more power and is fairer on making sure that the community actually gets what it needs and what it wants and what it's willing to pay for. So that's another reason we really have to, it's a vote for yourself. It's a vote for your community. Let's do it, people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you make a good point, Kathy, because as it stands right now with bonds and it's 67%, a third of your community is making the decision for the entire community.
Right.
How wrong is that, right? And so you feel like your vote doesn't count. I don't know how many times I've seen bonds go through, and there's a list of them. The California League of California Cities has a list of all the bonds that have not gone through. And it's just interesting how many have not gone through, and how my neighbors years ago said, well, that passed at 57%. I said, no, it had to be 2/3. What do you mean? That's the way the rule was then. So, let's still give a city the opportunity. If you want to do the 2/3 bond, you can still do it. No one told you didn't have to do it. That's your option. Or do the 55% that has all the guardrails on it, that gives a community the opportunity to vote on it, and it's a super majority. I don't know, but I would go with my 55%.
I think we learned that lesson.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead,
go ahead, Mark.
Jonathan. Oh, I was going to say, I was just thinking back to Evan's question. I think these are really good points, Evan, that you could bring back to your groups and some of the local advocacy that you're doing, right? Making sure that folks know that it is not 55%, and that they can change that, and that this vote really is kind of a vote for democracy on the ballot right now. I know a lot of folks in my community, I'm part of the Muslim community here in Sacramento, and they're a little hesitant to vote at all in this election. And so, I've been really just pushing, saying, look at the nonpartisan bills and ballots, look at what you can control, what's on there that you can do something about and make a difference. And this is a big one, right? So even if folks don't want to show up for partisan elections, that's okay. I think these types of ballot measures are really important, and they actually make a really big difference in your community, and your vote actually would matter. So I think that's a big takeaway for me.
The Sacramento Bee did a really good article editorial in support of Prop 5. This is a chance that we can do now. Otherwise, another one of these propositions won't come through for 10, 20 years. I can't wait that long. And I'm sure you can't wait that long either. So remind people is that these kind of, like, it took me 7.5 years to get it through the legislature, right? To get on the ballot. Why? Is because many of my colleagues are frightened to vote on these kind of difficult bills and propositions. It's really quite easy if they think about that. The first ones to complain to me about lack of housing all the time. What are we going to do about housing? Well, then you need to be out there telling everybody the importance of Prop 5.
Yeah, and I think we learned the lesson with school bonds, being able to have that in parity with school bonds at 55%. It's about parity, it's about democracy, being able to have a majority decide our future for these local jurisdictions. If you care about infrastructure, about affordable housing, it's giving that self-determination back to local communities. And I think it's really a testament to this broad-based coalition. You have the firefighters, teachers, labor, as well as housing advocates up and down the state supporting this, because we need this for our local communities to be able to continue to build more affordable housing, to build infrastructure like water and fire stations. And I'm really excited about this. I know that we have a lot of folks that are out there engaging across the state, and we're happy to do this in a small way for our region locally. Was there anything else that folks would like to add from our panelists, Matt or Kathy, anything like that? I know we have some additional resources we'll share out with folks who were able to attend today, as well as posting this recording online. So folks who weren't able to attend live will be able to go back and watch it. But we also, as Matt reminded us, we have an upcoming coalition call, as well as with the Housing Alliance. We're hosting an in-person voter education event next Thursday at Uptown Studios in Sacramento, where we'll be discussing this and have an opportunity to talk to voters directly in person. So please share with your networks. We're really excited to have the opportunity to have the majority leader with us today, as well as our partners with Matt, Noor, and Kathy. But again, we have the yesonprop5.org, as well as different areas where you can follow this on social media, on Facebook, on X, on Instagram. And we have materials we can share out with you. There's a whole social media toolkit. We can update that. You can include letters to the editor for your local newspapers, share online, share with your friends. And so it's really exciting to be able to get this. It's close. I tell everyone, it's like assume that you're underwater, you're the underdog in this campaign. Make sure that you're talking to your neighbors, to your friends and colleagues. We need everyone out there to vote on this. And more additional ways for folks to learn about voting. So ballots are dropping on Monday next week. So voting starts next week and up until is it 8 o'clock on election day, be able to vote in person and drop off your ballot before that deadline on November 5th. So we have a voting season, not just voting day. So make sure that you're looking for your ballot, for your voter guide, read up on these issues. It's really important. And all of the different ways that this is going to have a big impact for our communities, like our wonderful panelists highlighted earlier. And any last thoughts or questions before we end up closing up for the afternoon?
I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. If we get this across, it's because of all of you. And pick up the phone, call your neighbor. I mean, if there's any proposition that they go on, this is the one that's going to be the most effective out of all of them. Like, you know, there's a lot of them out there that are well-meaning, but this one's going to really change your communities going forward. I really appreciate it. Remember, it doesn't raise taxes. It has tough taxpayer protections. We're just lowering it down from 2/3 to 55%. And the threshold just establishes another way to do bonds. So I want to thank you very much. I want to thank Yes on 5 team. They've done an incredible job. Jonathan, Noor, and Kathy, so much for having me today. And let's get this done. Let's prove everybody wrong that this is really important to our communities.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to the majority leader
Vote.
and to the
Vote.
Prop 5.
Oh,
Vote.
vote,
Vote, vote, vote.
Oh.
Let's get out there and vote, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.